Chapter 15 Rogues and Sisters. Alpha Jackson's POV. After Kiara left, exhaustion pressed down on me, not from the sex itself, but from who it was with. I was so damn tired of empty encounters, of using women for one desperate reason, to break the curse and maybe, just maybe, preserve my worthless life. I was sick to death of meaningless relationships, and it was Astrid's fault. Time with her is a habit I can't or won't break. Her innocence wipes away some of my own rot. Seeing her so dazzled by other people's lives, so endlessly curious, watching her lose herself in whatever book she'd found, it was fast becoming my favorite part of the day. Sometimes I barely heard what she said. My mind wandered instead to the curve of her smile, the contagious light in her eyes, the wonder that shone in her gaze every time she looked at me like I'd hung up the moon. And I admit it, I craved more. No, I needed more. Needed her. Kiara's knock yanked me straight out of that daydream. I stared at Astrid, just to see what her face would betray with another woman barging in on us. But she barely acknowledged it, slowly excused herself without my say-so. That small, indifferent exit just made me angrier. She didn't look back. She practically skipped away, like she couldn't wait to be rid of me. I kept that frustration pressed down hard inside me with Kiara, letting it stew until by the end I felt nothing but chilled emptiness. I glanced at the small tower of books in the corner. Astrid's books. She'd be in the library now, content among her newer friends, the words on pages. She'd never miss me, even as I was going crazy missing her. She had a mate after all. It's far too early for anything real between us, at least, so why was my chest on fire like this? I stood. I would just go to the library and bring her back. She had no right to be content when I was anything except. The door swung open, and suddenly Kaylin stood before me as if summoned out of the air. Caleb. Good. Go find Astrid and bring her to me immediately, I ordered. But Caleb didn't budge. I looked him over and for once really saw the panic simmering in his gaze. Alpha, I've come with important news. Instinct slammed down on me. What happened? The rogues have attacked. A low growl shook me. Rage rolled in, forgotten until I tasted its burn. Rogues. Vile bastards, scraps of the wolf world, thinking they'd dare touch my people? They'd see just how ferocious I could be, and their blood would douse this mess of feelings Astrid left dragging behind. Gather every able hand, I said through clenched teeth, facing my beta. Let's show the rogues what it means to attack our pack. Caleb bowed deeply. Yes, Alpha. I'd deal with Astrid when I returned. Kiara's POV. I'd never cried this hard. The tears wouldn't stop. My chest hurt like I'd swallowed iron. Alpha Jackson would never love me. Never look at me, not the way I gazed at him anyway. That hope was nothing more than a painful dream. My bedroom door flew open and Freya swept in, her red hair flowing like some implacable flag, fringe hugging her delicate features. Kiara, what happened? Why are you crying? Freya's voice sounded worried and sharp. I tried to answer, but the sound broke down into hot, shaking sobs. Freya rushed to fold me up in her arms, holding tight and rubbing soothing circles on my back. Finally, with a heave, I blurted out the pain that kept pounding inside my head. He loves her. Freya leaned back and scrutinized my face, clear confusion in her frown. Who loves who, Claire? Frustration seethed inside me. Did everyone around here have hay for brains? Alpha Jackson loves that newcomer, that harlot who just waltzed in. I choked out. Freya's brows knit further, skeptical. Alpha Jackson doesn't love anyone, Kiara. He only wants his heir. A part of me wanted desperately to believe her. That had always been his only concern, an heir. But how do you explain the way he acts around her? No pregnancy to keep her here, no hold beside the way he watches her, all focused laughter and gentle attention. What unholy nonsense is that? Desperate, I held Freya's eyes. Freya, I know what I saw. He's not the same, not with her. Freya sighed. All right. Even if it's true, even if he's fallen, he's not worth all of this, the crying, Kiara. She brushed my tears away with a rough affection. We are surrogates. That doesn't change. We give him a child and walk away with our payments. Like it was all so simple. Just spit out a pop, cash in for a new life. But that was Freya, always the practical one. Real. Not given to dramatics. She kept me upright all those nights I would have drowned in my own longing. When I first came here, selected to be his surrogate, she'd been happy for me. When I sobbed into her shoulder, she joined too, braved it all just to watch over her wreck of a sister. Some would say it was strange sharing a man with your own flesh and blood, but that was our reality. If Freg felt anything, envy, regret, she never showed it. All she seemed to care about was the payday and where it could lead us. I tried to sound braver than I felt, facing her now. Freya, I don't care about the money. I really don't. I love Alpha Jackson. I wish he could see me the way he sees Astrid. Freya gave me a look so heavy with pity its weight nearly pushed me out of her arms. Kiara, you have to let this go. Can't you try to forget? How could I do that? I'd have to forget how to breathe. I can't, I snapped, the emotion shivering beneath my words. I pictured Astrid wrapped up in Alpha's attention, refused to let him slip away so easily. If I can't have his love, I'll end myself. Kiara, Freya practically shrieked, her hazel eyes matching my own as they went wide, frightened. I just shook my head. I can't live without him, Freya. I don't want to. Desperation cracked in the way she gripped me tighter, like she could anchor me to this world through pure willpower. Don't say things like that, Kiara, please. I'm not joking. I leaned closer, pleading with my eyes, with everything left in me. Then help me. We get rid of her. He'll look at me again. He never noticed me before, not really, but now I could see a chance. I'd do anything to take her place. Freya went quiet, distant, considering. Then, a cunning look flickered across her face as she straightened to meet my gaze. If Alpha Jackson has a child, a real living child, then he won't need Astrid or any of the rest of us. He'll let her go. It was a brilliant plan on paper, except for the whole matter of actually getting pregnant. We'd been trying for years. Trials, medicine, interventions, nothing. But we tried everything, I reminded her bitterly. Not even IVF worked, not for me. Freya's confidence didn't shift. The realization hit me like a slap. I stared at her in disbelief. No, you don't mean... She pressed her index finger firmly to my lips, silencing me. I do. My throat went dry. This plan was damn near as dangerous as hunting Astrid down ourselves. If Alpha Jackson finds out, he'll end you, Freya. She just shook her head, calm as anything, flashing that old, reassuring smile. He won't. I'll make sure of it. Freya cradled me against her once more, soft and sincere. Thank you, I whispered, letting relief slip quietly into the air as she stroked my back. This plan would work. It had to. Chapter 16. The Betrayal. Alpha Jackson's POV. I'd expected the battle with the rogues to be easy, finish them off, and be back in my pack with Astrid in my arms within hours. But nothing went as planned. Weeks dragged on in relentless combat. These rogues fought harder, smarter, with a strength I'd never seen before. Unusual for rogues, they typically fracture under the weight of alliance, barely able to hold themselves together, let alone wage organized battle. That behavior alone reeked of outside interference. My suspicion quickly turned to Alpha Finn. Rumor had it, he was conducting experiments on rogues. I dismissed the stories as idle gossip, but now, not so sure. In the end, it hardly mattered. My warriors under my command broke their ranks, finally, for good. The rogues scattered into chaos. "Don't let their leader escape," I barked, sending a team to bring him in. The capture didn't take long. They dragged the rogue leader before me, half wild, nearly shifting. I dosed him with wolfsbane until he stabilized into human form, matted hair, eyes feverish and wild. My men forced him to his knees as I glared down at him. "Who sent you?" He snarled and struggled, all teeth and resistance. "Chain him," I ordered coolly. He wasn't planning to make this easy, was he? I locked eyes with Caleb, who handed me a silver dagger for motivation. I put it to use. The rogue's snarls turned into gut-wrenching screams, then to choked whimpers, but I didn't stop until he broke. His head hung, sweat and blood streaking his face as I yanked his hair, grinding out each word. "One more time. Who sent you? This pain is just the beginning if you won't talk. Nod once for yes, twice for no." If speaking failed him, as it often did with rogues left too long feral, a nod would do. His gaze flicked up at me. I pressed the bloody silver blade near his groin, and all hesitation melted. He nodded, just once. "So, Alpha Finn." Without further delay, I slit his throat. Alpha Finn believed this attack would intimidate me into releasing his son? He couldn't have been more wrong. He didn't realize how deep the consequences would run for both him and his precious boy. My thoughts drifted to Astrid. I hadn't seen her in weeks, and damn it if I didn't miss her more than I expected. Maybe Caleb was right. Feelings were starting to stir. "Let's go home." After returning to the Packlands, my first order was clear. I looked the ever-loyal Caleb in the eyes. Go to the dungeons. Bring Xavier. Now. Caleb bowed his acknowledgement. But before he could make it 2 steps, a flash of bright red hair tumbled past him and directly into my arms. Stunned, I instinctively studied her. Freya? Never before in her life had she greeted me like this after a dangerous campaign. She stepped back, cheeks flushed, her golden gaze shining. "Welcome home, Alpha." Her sudden affection caught me between surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing, Freya?" Our arrangement was always clear. Strictly business, emotion never entered the equation. She ducked her head, cheeks turning even redder. I apologize. I was just really happy to see you. I crossed the line, sorry." Don't let it happen again. My patience was running thin, Astrid was nowhere, and now I had to decipher whatever this display was. Freya touched my wrist softly, stopping me before I could stalk away. Aren't you even a little curious why I'm so excited, Alpha? Since when did Freya turn persistent? I shook off her hand. That concerns you, not me. She placed a hand gently on her belly, smiling just enough to make me still. Our business, Alpha. Ours. My anger evaporated in a heartbeat. Was she? I tried to steady my breath. What are you saying? Tears glimmered in her eyes beneath a radiant smile. I'm pregnant. Finally, Alpha. Disbelief flooded my veins, and before I knew it, my hand rested over hers on her stomach, needing proof this wasn't another fleeting hope. I remembered the timing. She was with me right before Astrid, right before I was called away. Are you certain? I pressed, unable to mask the raw hope in my voice. She nodded, certainty shining in her tear-filled eyes. Yes. For the very first time with any surrogate, I pulled her into my embrace. I escorted her gently to her room before calling Dr. Rachel. The wait felt endless, every passing minute haunted by fear of disappointment. Finally, even Dr. Rachel looked startled as she straightened from her exam. She is pregnant, Alpha. My congratulations. She bowed with rare formality. A shaky rush of relief poured out. I scrubbed a trembling hand over my face, hearing the curse crack and splinter free. The spell was broken. I sat beside Freya and hugged her once more, feeling her relax and lay her head against my chest. Thank you, Freya. You have no idea what this means to me. It's an honor, Alpha. Her voice trembled, softer than I'd ever heard it. Already, new worries formed. I must ensure her pregnancy went smoothly. No stress, no risk, nothing left uncared for. I reached into the pack link and summoned all Freya's maids to the room. They lined up at the foot of her bed. I met each gaze with unwavering authority. Your only duty now is to keep her healthy. She isn't to lift a single finger, not if it can be helped. Even the current number of attendants seemed insufficient. I turned to Freya. You'll get more maids, whatever you need. She blushed, bowing her head shyly. Thank you, Alpha. Caleb entered then, carrying what I'd asked for, and not the route to the dungeons he was about to take. I accepted the item and nodded for him to depart, finally turning back to Freya. Here. She stared at the black card in my hand, wide-eyed. Alpha, you shouldn't have... I didn't let her finish. You're giving me more than I could ever repay. A future, my life. Use this for anything you need. If something else would help you, you only have to say the word. She hesitated, then glanced up at me from beneath her lashes, uncertainty shaping her words. My sister, Kiara. I'd like her to stay here for as long as she wishes, even after I give birth, even if the other surrogates go. A peculiar request, but I'd promised her a blank check, hadn't I? Before I could respond, she wrapped her hands around my arm, her eyes shining with plea. Please, Alpha, don't say no. I nodded. It's granted. She may stay. She sagged with relief, a noise almost like a suppressed sob slipping free. Thank you. Thank you. I squeezed her hand, but as the maids bustled quietly around, my thoughts snapped to Astrid. Did she know I'd returned? Why hadn't she come? Turning to the closest maid, I said, too curtly I admitted it, fetch surrogate Astrid. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched Freya freeze at the mention of Astrid. What's wrong, Freya? My tone sharpened. She blinked, face paler now. Alpha? Did something happen to Astrid? Dread gnawed at the edges of my patience. Has something happened? She ducked her gaze. No, no, Alpha. But she's not here anymore. I seized her arm, my frustration bursting into my grip. What are you saying? She's not here? Freya looked up quickly, fear flickering in her eyes. She escaped. Astrid left the pack with Xavier. The word impossible was the only thought capable of forming. I couldn't believe it. Astrid wouldn't do that. My hold on Freya tightened before I realized what I was doing, making her flinch. If I discover you're lying, Freya, not a soul here will shield you from my wrath. Caleb darted into the room then, his face grim. Alpha, Xavier has escaped from the prison. My fury boiled over. Betrayal surged through me, sharp and cutting. How could Astrid choose to betray me, for him? A deep, feral growl ripped from my chest. Find her, I snapped at Caleb, not caring about his hesitation or questions. Bring Astrid and Xavier to me, dead or alive. Chapter 17, Forests and Trees. Astrid's POV. I woke with a throbbing headache that refused to relent. The sharp branches beneath me sliced into my palms as I pushed myself upright, a quiet gasp slipping out from the sudden pain. How did I end up here? Just thinking about it made my head pound harder. My memory was a fog, nothing but splinters. I forced myself to look around. No more panic, just observation. It took me a moment to realize where I was, right at the border of the Crimson Moonpack's territory. How was that possible? More importantly, what was I supposed to do with this opportunity for escape? Some stubborn part of me resisted the idea, an irrational, fragile piece that clung to Alpha Jackson. Pathetic. That foolish side missed him now that he was gone, willfully ignoring the fact I was just one of his many surrogates, nothing special. He'd move on instantly, barely flinching last night when another surrogate replaced me. I told myself, stop. No more thinking of him. I needed his money to find my dad, that's it. But if neither I nor any other surrogate had given him a child, why would I succeed? And how long would that price be my cage? If I didn't deliver a child, I'd never get out. I'd never find my dad. Never live just for myself, freely, as I've dreamed of. If I let my tangled feelings cloud my judgment, I'd regret it. No hesitation. I had to leave. Now. I sprinted. Or tried to. Something slammed me so hard into a tree that my breath escaped in a strangled grunt. I cracked my eyes open and my blood turned to ice. Xavier. Xavier smiled at me, and it sent a deep chill through me. There was nothing warm or comforting about his grin. He looked dreadful, his hair wild, his jaw covered with the scruffy beginnings of a beard I'd never seen him wear. Worst of all, he smelled rancid. Had he been locked up, imprisoned all this time? It was the only explanation for this transformation. I twisted, heart hammering, suddenly terrified. Let me go, Xavier. He bared his fangs at me, snarling, Don't push me or I'll knock you out again. Again. Memory burst across my mind. I remembered wandering around the pack house after yet another miserable week without Alpha Jackson. No one would talk to me, not even in the library. It was when I snuck out of my window, desperate for air, that I'd smelled something odd, felt a heavy blow to my head, and then Nothing. It had to be Xavier. Goddess, why did I ever leave my room without my guards? I struggled furiously. Let me go, Xavier. What are you even doing? He pressed closer, suffocating me beneath the filth of his breath and the greasy cling of his clothes. Why fight me so hard? His voice was dangerously low. Do you really want to run back to him? A trap. His anger simmered just beneath the words. He wanted a reason to lash out. Stop spouting nonsense, Xavier. Let me go. Out of nowhere, a slap, so sharp my ears rang and my vision tunneled. Enough attitude. Have you forgotten who I am? I'm the heir of the Moonshadow Pack. I am your mate. Your life belongs to me. He drew himself up, smug and arrogant. If you know what's good for you, you'll come home quietly. Come home. As if that place of cruelty and neglect ever deserved that name. I wasn't that girl anymore. I faced my former mate, once my friend, now anything but. My life is my own, Xavier. You'll never be my mate. I looked into his eyes and finished what he'd left unsaid, words heavy with finality. I, Astrid Nightshade, reject you, Xavier Blackwood, as my mate. His eyes widened, shock folding into outrage. Shut up. I refuse your rejection, he snarled. I shook my head, confusion and anger battling in my chest. You already rejected me yourself. You can't just ignore that when it suits you. Xavier gripped my chin, squeezing until pain shot through my face and tears welled unbidden. I said, shut up. You're nothing like the Astrid I knew. Through gritted teeth, I spat my reply. You never knew me, Xavier. I braced for the next slap and absorbed the pain as blood bloomed against the inside of my mouth. He was desperate to wound me. I've had enough. You're nothing but a shameless woman who's forgotten her place after disgracing herself with Alpha Jackson. The way he stared down at me made him look colder, less human than ever. I'll make you regret every moment. I'll etch your place in your mind. You won't forget again. Disgust and fear stabbed at me, but I met his gaze, defiant. You've lost your mind. I stuffed down my fear, refusing to show weakness. If he dragged me back to the Moonshadow Pack, it was over for me. He kept ranting. No, I haven't lost my mind. But you're broken. You'll pay for betraying your mate and your pack right before my father and the whole clan. He jerked my hair, yanking me forward. I yelped at the fresh pain and panicked. There were no border guards in sight. He must have handled them first. He was pulling at me, but there was a sluggishness to his movements, a weakness. Hadn't he spent weeks in the dungeon, neglected and half-starved? That could be my chance. When he pulled again, I went limp for a split second, then surged forward, colliding with him and knocking him off balance. As he wavered, I kneed him squarely between the legs. Xavier let out a strangled grunt, doubling over, hands clutched to his groin. Rage blazed in his eyes. If glares could sear flesh, I'd be a pile of ashes. Wretch. His voice trembled with hate. I glared back, spit blood and adrenaline. Bastard. With all my strength, I kicked him hard across the forehead. Xavier collapsed, unconscious. Panting from exertion and terror, I knew I was far from out of danger. I had two choices, run back to Alpha Jackson's arms or keep going alone. I hesitated. How had Xavier broken out of the dungeon? who helped him get into one of the world's most guarded packs. He had allies, maybe still watching, ready to act. Alpha Jackson was at war now. He'd never be able to protect me. With tears stinging hot and disappointment scraping my chest, I turned away from the only man who had truly ever made my heart race, and ran. A blood-curdling howl cracked through the forest. I darted forward, faster. Something slammed me hard from behind, sending me tumbling over roots and dead leaves until a tree halted me with bruising force. On my back, gasping, radiating pain, I looked up to see who had struck me senseless. Shock and dread slammed into me as I made out the hulking figure above me. Alpha Finn? Chapter 18. Kill her. Alpha Jackson's POV. My dungeons had always been secure. No one had ever managed to escape before. So how the hell did Xavier slip through? Did I have more traitors lurking in my pack? Traitors I hadn't rooted out yet? I needed answers. As Caleb doubled back to hunt for Xavier and Astrid, I headed for the dungeons myself. The corridor was dim and silent, my boots echoing off the stone, but something felt off. Then I felt it, someone was following me. I spun around. Freya stood a few steps behind, eyes wide. "Why are you following me?" My tone was sharp, no room for missteps tonight. She looked startled and flushed under my gaze. "I'm worried about you." Again, Freya acting out of character. Something didn't feel right. Had she ever shown this kind of concern before? Not in all the time I'd known her. I studied her, critical. "You're worried about me?" Her eyes dropped to the ground and she cradled her stomach, a reflexive, protective gesture. "We're going to have a child together. Is it wrong for me to care what happens to the father of my child?" My gaze lingered on her belly. The idea of her carrying my heir still felt surreal, a strange sort of blessing I hadn't expected. But that didn't excuse her overstepping. She couldn't take such liberties just because she was pregnant. I leveled her with a cold look, keeping my voice clipped and firm. "You're only my surrogate, Freya. Don't push the boundaries." Her face fell, cheeks flushing deeper. She bowed her head immediately. "Yes, Alpha." She stayed there, motionless, until I started down the hallway once more. I hesitated, glancing back at the woman set to bear my child, and guilt pricked at me. I'd sworn her protection, promised to shield her from stress, yet here I was being the source of it. If all she wanted was to follow, I could let that slide. Anything more, I'd send her back to her room and be done with it. Without looking at her, I called, "You can follow me, Freya." The unmistakable shuffle of hurried footsteps answered me, and her voice trembled close to breaking. "Thank you, Alpha." I grunted. Maybe it was just her pregnancy making her more emotional. I'd always heard that women could get unpredictable during this time. A few more steps in silence, and then, tentatively, Freya spoke up again. "Alpha Jackson, may I ask you something?" "No." I bit back the response, forcing my temper in check. She was becoming talkative, unlike herself, not what I wanted to deal with, but I checked my irritation. Not tonight. Lately, whenever I thought about conversation, only Astrid came to mind. Astrid, the very woman who'd betrayed me. I glanced sidelong at Freya. "What is it you want to ask?" Nervously, she twisted her hands together, eyes on the floor, putting me on edge. "Alpha, you're always just. You set boundaries, and everyone must follow your rules." Where is she going with this? What are you getting at? My patience was running thin. She seemed to shrink under my stare, her nervousness spiking. Her voice quivered. I'm not sure how to say this, Alpha. A warning growl escaped me. Tiny goosebumps popped on her arms. Speak, I barked. Licking her lips, she finally forced out the words. Some of the pack, people are concerned that you're changing. That Astrid has you twisted around her little finger. She's broken your rules. Ink, she hasn't even faced punishment. I blinked, momentarily thrown off, sure that I must have misheard. How have I been favoring Astrid? Freya lifted her gaze. There was an edge in her eyes now, sharp and measuring. She stayed in your rooms past her time, took a day another surrogate should have had. That surrogate's day is gone now. If that wasn't enough, Astrid brought her lover into the pack house and left with him when you were distracted. Rage flared up in my chest, Astrid's betrayal searing deeper, but beneath the anger, suspicion lingered. Freya sounded sincere, but something felt wrong. Was any of this truly her own concern, or was she just acting? I doubted anyone in the pack confided in Freya. The whole scene felt staged. I stopped and turned to face her head-on. And what does the pack want? Not a moment's hesitation. Freya's gaze didn't waver. There's only one thing that would settle everyone. Proper punishment. Astrid's death. I froze. She wanted me to kill Astrid? I would never. My anger toward Astrid didn't run that deep. Not yet. I thought back over her accusations, searching for any note of personal pain. The comment about the surrogate's day, it clicked. Kiara, Freya's younger sister. My distrust of her grew. Anyone who betrays me must face the penalty, I replied carefully, gauging her. Freya trembled, barely perceptible, before her lips curled into a stiff smile. Of course, Alpha. That is the only fitting punishment. Immediately, I mind-linked Caleb. I want eyes on Freya and her sister around the clock. Update me on everything they do. Caleb sounded perplexed at first, then composed himself. Understood, Alpha. Actually, I was just about to tell you, Xavier's been spotted near our borders. We're already heading there. The dungeon could wait. Catching Xavier and Astrid took priority. Hold off doing anything to him until I arrive. I'm coming now. I cut off the link. Freya was staring at me, hesitation and fear mingling across her face. I realized I'd completely spaced out, gone silent right after threatening to kill anyone who betrayed me. I tried to smile, but I knew it didn't reach my eyes. You should get some rest, Freya. I have affairs to attend to. She dipped her head again, relief heavy in her voice. Yes, Alpha. Turning, I headed for the exit. I'd barely rounded the corner when I heard her addressing the nearest maid, her tone sharp. Fetch my sister. Maid, we're going shopping. I hesitated, glancing back just in time to see her smirk. But there wasn't time to worry about her, not right now. She was already under surveillance. If either sister stepped out of line, I'd know. Right now, Astrid was my priority. Blazing with anger, I made my way straight to the border. My men were waiting, standing ready, while Xavier, filthy and defiant, glared up at me from the dirt. Astrid was nowhere in sight. I turned to Caleb. Where's Astrid? A faint flush crept up his cheeks as he bowed his head with frustration. He was alone when we found him, Alpha. Unexpected concern broiled inside me. Without hesitation, I grabbed Xavier by the collar, yanking him to his feet. "Where is Astrid?" I demanded. Xavier chuckled, a low, taunting sound. "What, so you can trap her again?" Had Astrid said that to him, or was he just trying to provoke me? My temper flared. I squeezed tighter, ignoring his useless struggling. I said, "Where is she?" He didn't even pretend to be scared, just looked at me, infuriatingly smug. "You'll never know." "She's gone. And she's never coming back." Dread pulsed cold down my spine. Did he do something to her, or was Freya right? Did Astrid really run off with him? I let go, dumping him on the ground. Xavier looked almost relieved, sitting there, his face blank, like there was nothing left to lose. But I was far from finished. I bared my claws, prepared to draw blood, to force answers about Astrid another way. "I have no use for you alive anymore," I growled. Fear stole the confidence from Xavier's eyes, his bravado gone, replaced by sharp terror. I raised my hand, claws gleaming, ready for the kill, and was stopped cold by a voice that cut through the rage. "Stop, Alpha Jackson." Chapter 19, Tears of Gold. Astrid's POV. I blinked. Alpha Finn towered over me, his expression twisted with fury, as if he was weighing my life in his hands. "You ungrateful little wretch," he spat, each word laced with venom. Alpha Finn had never spoken to me like this before. He'd always tried to act the savior, a fatherly figure, someone I could trust. That pretense was gone now. "Alpha Finn," I started, voice small, but he yanked me to my feet, his grip brute and far rougher than Xavier's had ever been. "I took you in, fed you, clothed you, looked after you, and the first chance you get, you slip right into the enemy's bed." His words sliced through the air. Shock shot through me. How did he know? He must have contacted Xavier. I stared at the man I once thought of as family. The urge to scream at him for using me as a pawn to secure the throne for his son pressed against my chest, but I swallowed it down. Now wasn't the time. He was far stronger than Xavier. Angering him would get me nothing but more pain. So I folded my hands, lowered my gaze, and did my best to sound contrite. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. Please, forgive me." Alpha Finn's eyes showed no hint of mercy. "You're coming with me. You'll take me to my son." I opened my mouth, desperate to say anything so I wouldn't have to go back, but his claws suddenly pressed hard to my neck, and I heard movement in the brush behind. He wasn't alone. His gaze was dark and ice cold. "Don't get clever. Or else." I swallowed and nodded, terror crawling up my spine. He didn't need to finish. I knew what hung in the balance. He gagged me forward with his tight into my skin, all the while not trusting me not to bolt. It took mere minutes to retrace my path and reach the clearing where I'd left Xavier. But he wasn't alone. Alpha Jackson was there, claws extended, ready to end Xavier's life. Alpha Finn lost control, shouting, "Stop, Alpha Jackson!" Alpha Jackson's hand froze in midair. He looked up, silver gray stare landing on us, and then time seemed to stop altogether. When his eyes met mine, I nearly broke. Tears threatened. All I wanted was to run to him, to collapse into his arms, sobbing away everything I'd held in for days. I couldn't make out his voice, but his lips shaped my name so clearly I could feel it brush against my skin. Astrid. I shivered, instinctively trying to move toward him, only for Alpha Finn's grip on my neck to clamp down, hard. Even at this distance, I saw fire flicker in Alpha Jackson's eyes, saw him take a step toward us. Alpha Finn retreated backwards, his arm a steel vise around my neck. If you come any closer, I'll cut her throat. Alpha Jackson froze. Now Finn seemed to find his footing, straightening his back and raising his voice. "Hand my son over or she dies," he growled. For a long moment, Alpha Jackson was silent. Then, to my shock, his mouth twisted into a crooked smirk, his eyes dead cold. "Go ahead." My heart dropped. Did Alpha Jackson just invite Finn to go through with it? Even Finn was caught off guard. Alpha Jackson seemed almost amused, arms crossed and face unreadable. "I have plenty of surrogates. If you finish off this one, so what?" The words carved a wound deeper than I'd ever felt. I knew I meant little to him, but hearing it set loose a pain that doubled me over inside. Finn growled, refusing to believe it. His claws prickled sharper at my throat, and I felt beads of blood rise. "You're lying. I'll do it. I mean it." Without flinching, Alpha Jackson shrugged and turned his back, shoving Xavier onto the ground and pressing his claws to Xavier's neck. "Makes no difference to me. I certainly have no intention of letting your son off for trespassing." Panic hung around Finn like a suffocating mist. He stammered, You wouldn't," but the desperate plea was too loud in the silence between ancient trees. Alpha Jackson's smile turned deadly, his stare black with malice. "I suppose you'll find out soon enough, won't you?" Finn was rattled, starting to lose his hold. "Please, stop." His grip eased just enough that I could suck in a shaky breath. "I cannot lose my son." Of course, Xavier was his only heir, the last hope of a legacy. If Jackson killed him, his family line ended here. Alpha Jackson only laughed, low and dark. "I fail to see how your distress is my problem." He was colder than they'd ever described, total ice, showing no cracks. I shivered inside. How had I ever fallen for a man like this? Desperate, Finn reached for whatever might work. "She may be nothing to you, but you paid good gold for her, isn't that right? Are you really willing to see the money you spent wasted?" Jackson's eyes narrowed, measuring the truth behind Finn's words. His claws pressed deeper into Xavier's skin, mirroring the pain on my own throat. "I'm listening," Jackson said. Finn caught the open invitation with a desperate gulp. "I give you Astrid. You hand over Xavier." Jackson fixed that indifferent, icy stare on him, seeming to weigh the trade, and then shrugged unaffected. "You're right, Finn. I don't take kindly to others pawning off what belongs to me, especially not something I paid a fair price for." His answer ran through me like cold steel. Was that truly all I was? Property, an item he paid for? I couldn't even speak, not with Finn's claws ready to draw more blood, not with Jackson's words echoing in my ears. My value, the price in gold. Without any horror or urgency, both Alphas nodded, and I spotted the men at Alpha Jackson's flank, including Caleb, spread away. Jackson hauled Xavier up, mirroring every step that Finn took forward, each alpha moving to meet in the center of the clearing. The tension was a living electric thing. One wrong move, and Xavier or I might both die. When we finally met, the forest went silent. They agreed to release us at the count of 3. Jackson counted, staring past me as if I were a stranger. On the signal, Finn shoved me forward, and I crashed against Jackson's chest. For a moment, hope surfaced, but when I looked up into his face, the coldness burned hotter than fire. Yes, his arms circled round me, but he felt farther away now than ever. Alpha Finn's rage tore the air behind us. You utter dolt. How did you mess up something this simple? Xavier faltered, pleading, Father, please. Finn cut him off, disgusted. Not only did you fail, you got caught. Worthless, any pack soldier would have done better. Their arguments spiraled, every word sharp and blistering. They'd nearly forgotten Alpha Jackson stood with a monstrous stillness a few feet away, watching their humiliation with silent amusement. That's when Alpha Jackson's voice sliced through it all, cold and final. Kill them both, he said to his men, the words dropping like stones. What? You're breaking your word. Finn stumbled backward in shock. No, Alpha Jackson replied, eyes glinting. I never promised to let you live after getting Astrid back. He held Finn and Xavier both in his predator's stare. Get them, he commanded. Finn and Xavier ran for their lives, shifting as they fled. Jackson's men transformed and gave chase, the forest alive with snarls, cracking bones, and chaos. Within moments, everyone was gone, except me and Jackson. He tipped my chin up, gentle for the first time, and in that moment, I noticed tears streaking my cheeks. Didn't my words wound you? He asked softly, brushing the tears away with his thumb. All that about how losing you wouldn't mean a thing? I couldn't trust my voice to answer, couldn't respond, not when pain sat so heavy in my chest. He let out a low chuckle, as if my heartache was just another curiosity. You'll have plenty more tears to cry, Astrid. You might mean nothing to me, but I will never let you go. Chapter 22, The Traitor, Alpha Jackson's POV. For the first time, I was genuinely unsettled by my own actions. Usually, everything I did was calculated, meticulous, without room for regret. But now my mind was plagued by doubt. Perhaps because, this time, I'd acted out of anger and not logic. I hadn't planned, I just reacted. When I saw Astrid's tears, something twisted inside me. I reminded myself, she's guilty. She ran away like a coward, with her miserable excuse for a mate, Xavier, who had managed to slip past my men, much to my irritation. Still, I shouldn't be bothered. There's no reason for guilt. I have always punished according to the crime. People have called me ruthless and cold-hearted since I was a child. Had Astrid changed me? Impossible. A sharp knock at the door shattered my thoughts. Come in, Caleb, I called. My beta walked in, eyes steady, a tablet in his hands. I wanted to get this done, to shake off this miserable feeling brewing in my gut. Did you bring what I asked for? I prompted. He nodded, expression grim. Yes, Alpha. He handed me the tablet, which I unlocked with a swipe of my finger and a quick tap. Footage from the camera outside Astrid's room rolled in high speed. Caleb spoke as I watched, breaking the silence with his steady explanation. According to the footage and the guard's testimony, Astrid didn't once leave her room, he said. He was right. The whole time her guard was stationed outside, 2 mates by his side, waiting for Astrid to ring. I leaned closer, resetting the video, scanning it again to check for any sign of tampering. She left, but not through the front door, I muttered. The disappointment surprised me. What had I been expecting? Maybe I wanted a clear video of Xavier dragging her from that room. Anything to justify this betrayal pulsing in my chest. Caleb agreed immediately. We suspect she slipped out the window that opens to the garden. I scowled. Letting her have a ground floor room, that was my mistake. One I'd correct, starting now. Move her to a room higher up, I ordered. Caleb's brow furrowed, no doubt wondering why I worried about Astrid's lodging when we had bigger threats to address, but he didn't question me. Yes, Alpha. I turned my attention back to the screen. Do we know how Xavier escaped? Did you pull the footage from the prison cells? From the edge of my vision, I saw Caleb bow his head. I'm sorry, Alpha. The cameras were down that day. How convenient. The very cameras that would have shown Xavier's escape had failed just then. I never believed in coincidences. Not something like this. Not when trouble had stirred so quickly in my own pack. I leveled Caleb with a cold stare. You know what this means? His jaw clenched, sorrow flickering in his eyes. We have a spy, he almost whispered. Not just any spy, I murmured. Someone who knows exactly what they're doing. Someone skilled enough to take down our cameras without being seen. Someone who knows our patrols, who slipped Xavier right through the cracks. And more than that, someone must have tipped off Moonshadow. How else could Alpha Finn show up at exactly the right place when Xavier escaped? Only a handful had access to all of this. A bitter realization clawed at me. If they truly had someone deep inside, helping them, that awkward rescue attempt at the library never would have happened. Astrid could have been smuggled out easily, no drama, no bravado. My anger faded, for a heartbeat, replaced by cold clarity. I remembered the terrified look in Astrid's eyes when I showed her the Moonshadow Pack's wanted poster. How quickly she'd agreed to my proposal, out of fear. If she planned to run from the start, why bother coming here at all? I realized I'd let my jealousy of her bond with Xavier cloud everything. Xavier hadn't rescued her, he stole her. Guilt washed over me for how I treated her, but more than that, a deep, simmering rage. Someone was pulling these strings, using my own fury against me. They meant for me to lose control. Under any other circumstances, Astrid might already be dead and buried along with the truth. But this morning, I'd woken with Astrid beside me, her breath soft against my skin. For a moment, I'd considered ending her right then. But I couldn't hurt her, not her. Why did you do this, Astrid? I whispered, but she slept right through it, because of course she hadn't done anything wrong. I'd taken it out on her for nothing. Now I would hunt down the one who betrayed us, the one responsible for Astrid's pain. They would pay in blood. I turned to Caleb, my tone edged with ice. You take direct control over security. Out of everyone with camera access, who could have done this? Who was on duty the day everything went wrong? Caleb hesitated, shifting his gaze from mine. I pressed well. He finally spoke, reluctance thick in his tone. I have a suspect, but I shouldn't be the one to lay blame. I ground my teeth. Your opinion now. He sighed. I think it was Jeffrey. Ah, so that was why he'd hesitated. Honestly, I should have suspected Jeff myself. He was an obvious choice. I faced Caleb directly, my posture rigid. Was he officially in charge that day? No, Caleb said after a pause, voice careful. But our new security cameras show him near the CCTV controls. Jeffrey Hale. We'd grown up together. I'd never liked him. Smarmy, sleazy. His father had been mine's beta, and everyone expected us to keep our families locked together at the top. He was meant to be my beta. But I'd made Caleb my right hand instead, for his loyalty, his skill, and because, frankly, he was the better man. Jeff never got over the slight. He pulled back, grew resentful, and cut himself off from duties, Caleb's responsibilities. If anyone knew how to sabotage things behind the scenes, it was him. Hell, he even had a reason. I cracked my knuckles, itching to show him my appreciation. He did it. Drag him here alive, I told Caleb. Yes, Alpha. He bowed and slipped away, leaving me to dark silence. If it really was Jeffrey, I owed Astrid more than an apology. I owed her a chance to heal. Minutes ticked by. No sound, not even a polite knock. My unease grew heavy. Finally, Caleb re-entered alone. My pulse spiked. Where is Jeffrey? I demanded. Caleb's face was drawn with worry. He's gone. Not in the pack house. His room's trashed. He bolted. Guilt couldn't be clearer than that. Lock down the borders. Tighten security, I barked. No one gets in or out. Jeffrey is to be found and brought to me. Now. This time, there would be no questioning. No second chances. When I finally got my hands on him, I'd end this with my own hands. Chapter 23. The Punishment. Astrid's POV. The older man who arrived with the guards turned out to be an Elder Jard. The Crimson Moon Pack had an elder council made up of 3 elders. They served justice whenever the Alpha was absent, and now they would be my judges. My hands were chained behind my back, and I was forced to kneel before them, the cold stone biting beneath my knees. None of them seemed even remotely impressed by my presence. Deep inside, I could sense exactly where this was headed. Elder Jared, the one who'd ordered my arrest in the gardens, was the first to speak. You have been brought before the council today for endangering the life of the unborn heir of the Crimson Moon Pack. Of course, it was all set up. I realized that now Freya and Kiara were sisters. I'd figured that much out from the chaos earlier. Freya must have contacted her sister through the pack link to bring the elder here at just the right time, conveniently framing me. Not that I would ever know what that's truly like, since I'd never been part of a pack link. I had no wolf, after all. Still, I tried to defend myself. Please, you have to believe me. I didn't try to hurt Freya or her unborn child. Silence. Elder Jared's disdain was palpable. I could feel how much just looking at me grated on him. The council hasn't asked for your opinion. Hot words of protest tangled in my throat. I bit them back, knowing anything I said now could just make things worse. Elder Gideon, who sat beside Jared, studied me, his bald head shining under the lights, eyes narrowed in quiet, almost lazy curiosity. He surprised everyone by speaking up, his voice languid but clear. I want to hear what she has to say. He turned to Elder Jared, who looked stunned, a flicker of irritation sparking in his eyes because the bald elder interrupted the rush to judgment. Elder Gideon met my gaze, and beneath the plain honesty of his stare, my skin prickled. Speak, Surrogate Astrid, but remember, if you lie, your life is lost. Elder Jared's dissatisfaction was written across his face, but he let me speak. The third elder, Elder Elias, with long, glossy black hair nearly trailing down his back, looked on in utter boredom. Nothing in his posture suggested he cared about today's outcome. I steadied myself. I didn't hurt her, I swear. I tried to help her before the guards arrived. Elder Jared's fist slammed down onto the great wooden table, a thunderclap that rattled the floor. See, this is why I didn't want her to speak. She's an Omega, wolfless, obviously desperate, and she knows nothing but lies. A hot flush of humiliation burned in my cheeks. Tears stung my eyes against my will. With a sharp clap, Elder Elias gestured as if to end the whole ordeal, voice cold and decisive. Let's get on with the sentencing and finish this. Sentencing. My own punishment for something I didn't do. Please have mercy. My words quivered. Elder Gideon's jaw tightened. He looked troubled, but he said nothing to defend me. Elder Jared's accusations grew louder. You lie without an ounce of shame and expect sympathy. We have witnesses who saw you arguing with Freya before you pushed her. My mouth fell open. I'd never done such a thing. It felt like they were piling on made-up crimes just to make their judgment look justified. That's a lie, I burst out. Elder Jared's gaze sharpened, his lips curling into something dangerously close to a smirk. So you're saying you never argued with her? I shook my head, words tumbling out clumsily. I did argue with her, but... Elder Elias cut me off, his tone flat, bored, and utterly uncompromising. That's enough. The punishment for harming a pup is corporal punishment. Elder Gideon's eyes flicked sideways, contemplative. She's Alpha Jackson's surrogate. It's his child we're talking about. We should wait and let him decide. Elder Jared pushed back, impatient and angry. No. If we let her go, she'll just do something worse. She must be punished. Now. Elder Elias nodded tightly. The Alpha is handling the breach in security. He doesn't need to be troubled by this. Without him, justice is our responsibility. We protect this pack. Their voices collided and settled around me, sealing my fate. How could Freya and Kiara do this to me? But barely even met. Why would they orchestrate something so cruel? My thoughts raced as the elders settled on my fate. Elder Gideon sadly agreed at last. You're right. He squared his gaze on me, somehow more sincere and even more intimidating. I forced myself to sit straighter on my knees, even though pain stabbed through every muscle. He pronounced my sentence without a flicker of emotion. Surrogate Astrid, for your crimes against Surrogate Freya, you are to receive 100 lashes. 50 for your actions, and 50 for lying to this council. A raspy gasp escaped my lips. 100 lashes. My mind whirled at the sheer number. I doubted I could survive even 10. These weren't ordinary attacks. No, the lashes were delivered using whips embedded with tiny slivers of silver. Each blow would shred skin and, worse, the silver would make healing slow and agonizing. 100 meant slow, deliberate torture. I might not survive. Elder Gideon continued, now almost gentle as he laid out my only hope. If you retract your statement and ask forgiveness for your actions, the number of lashes will be reduced. Tears choked my throat. My lips parted to beg, but the words stalled there, brittle and empty. I'd learned long ago, in Moonshadow Pack, how to plead, grovel, disgrace myself just to survive. But I wasn't that girl anymore, willing to spill my pride to buy an easier fate. I straightened my spine and met the eyes of every elder, steady even as my heart thundered and my palms burned with sweat. I can't apologize for something I didn't do. I am innocent. Elder Jared looked amused. Elder Elias didn't even register my answer. Elder Gideon just nodded once, expression unreadable. Very well. Guards, bind her to the pillar and bring the whips. The guards yanked me to my feet, shackled my arms to the pillar, and left me waiting as every scrap of courage quickly dissolved. The flogging began. The first strike tore through my shirt to bruise and gouge the skin beneath. By the third lash, fabric rent away. By the fourth, it was flesh-tearing raw strips peeled away from my back, clinging to the hateful whip. Pain split reality into jagged, glittering shards. It devoured me, hollowed me out, splintered every thought. Blood spilled hot down my back, soaking the waistband of my pants. As consciousness unraveled, I almost welcomed the end. If I died, maybe I'd escape Alpha Jackson, never be dragged back to Moonshadow Pack. The only ache that hurt more was knowing I'd never get to know my father. I'd never really live. I felt myself drifting, weightless, cold, untethered. Then, you can't give up now. A voice, small but unbearably commanding. My eyes fluttered open. There was no one. I was completely alone. What was that? Her soft, teasing laugh. It's me, May. Your wolf. I had a wolf. Chapter 24, Saving Him. Alpha Jackson's POV. I would find Jeff and force him to answer every question I had. I needed to know whether he had acted alone or with someone else. Caleb was already searching for him, but I was too tense, too restless to just wait for a report, which is how I found myself out of my office, prowling the corridors. As I made my way to the center of the pack house, I sensed something off, a tension in the air, so taut you could pluck it. Ignoring it, thinking my own concerns more urgent, I pressed on. Turning a corner, snatches of conversation floated to me from the hallway ahead. In the square. Then, a sharper voice spit out, bitterness coating every word. She deserves it for being the tramp she is. Someone else chimed in with a sly little laugh. Alpha should have put a stop to her tricks long ago. Hearing my title, I paused just beyond their sight. Whose wings were they wishing clipped now? Curiosity pricked at me, but before I could listen further, a frantic shout came from behind. Alpha! The chatter died instantly. I turned to see a rushing maid, a vaguely familiar face among too many to count, who halted in front of me and bowed as deep as she could. What is it? I demanded. She was gasping for breath, voice shaking. Alpha, you have to save Surrogate Astrid. Ice gripped me. I suddenly recognized her, the same maid I glimpsed working outside Astrid's room in the footage I had just watched. I seized her arm, my tone deadly. What's happened? She swallowed, terror twisting her features as she answered. The elders, they have her in the square. They're whipping her, and I didn't stick around to listen. I was already running, heart pounding. My mind reeled. Why would they be whipping her publicly? When had I ever ordered such a punishment? Why was she being hurt in the first place? Those questions would have to wait. As I neared the square, the metallic stench of blood assaulted me, Astrid's blood. I let out a guttural growl and pushed myself faster. Then I saw her. A crowd circled the scene, watching as Astrid, lashes laid open across her back, was bound to a pillar. A guard snapped a silver-studded whip, its tip flicking blood onto the ground. Her shirt, torn to pieces, clung limply at her sides. Her battered body sagged against her restraints, head hanging, unresponsive to the next blow, even as blood pooled at her feet. Stop. I barely recognized the deafening roar as my own. Silence crashed over the square. The crowd parted as I stormed forward. The guard, whip poised, hesitated just long enough for me to close the distance, wrench the weapon from his grip, and hurl it away before shoving him to the ground. My wolf wanted revenge, this man's life for the one still bleeding before me. But Astrid needed help, needed saving. The impulse was clear. Ignoring the searing pain from the silver fetters, I slashed through them with my claws and caught Astrid as she collapsed. Barely conscious, she blinked up at me, her voice little more than a sigh of wind. Jackson? I pulled her closer, relief and guilt twisting in my chest. I'm here, I said. I've got you. She slipped out again. I cradled her carefully, taking extra care with her ruined back, rage growing in every muscle. Through the pack link, I sent a sharp message to Caleb. Get the best doctor to my quarters. Astrid's injured. Slight pause. Yes, Alpha. I'd only taken a single step when Elder Jared's voice stopped me cold. Alpha Jackson, you can't release her. I turned deadly slow, letting my fury show. I stared one of the elders in the face, one who allowed this atrocity. You think you can order me around in my own house? He faltered, bowing deep enough to disguise the fear in his eyes. Of course not, Alpha. I just meant you didn't know what she'd done to deserve this. Blood was soaking through Astrid's waistband and onto my palm. I ground my teeth, every word venom. No crime could possibly merit this punishment. Elder Gideon stood from his bench, bowing low, his voice appropriately contrite. We apologize for the oversight, Alpha. Elder Elias joined him, but only watched without a word, cold and unmoved. Around us, the crowd murmured as Jared, embarrassed and red-faced, tried again. Surely you're not saying she couldn't have earned this. Endangering your heir and the future of the pack isn't enough. I frowned. What are you babbling about? He seemed relieved to fill the silence. She attacked the surrogate carrying your child. I looked at the frail woman in my arms. Astrid had attacked Freya? That didn't line up. I could count the times I'd really seen Astrid angry these past weeks. Never had she resorted to violence. Freya was far stronger than Astrid, especially while Astrid was wolfless. This story didn't sit right at all. Glaring at the elder, I spoke with ice and iron. Astrid is my surrogate under my protection. Her life and fate are mine alone. You challenge me one more time, Jared, and you'll answer for it personally. He stumbled backward, paled, the threat hanging clear enough between us. My apologies, Alpha. I overstepped, he muttered. I wasn't placated. Wait for my summons. There will be consequences for what occurred here today. Having settled that, I strode out of the square, Astrid still cradled in my arms. When we reached my room, I laid her as gently as I could on her stomach, cutting what remained of her shirt away, careful not to worsen her wounds. Her pants came off next, but I covered her lower half with my softest towel. One look at her brutalized back, and my temper snapped all over again. It took every ounce of willpower not to march right out and make the elders regret ever crossing me. At that moment, the door opened. Overwrought, I didn't wait for an explanation. I slammed the intruder against the wall in a blur. The doctor let out a shocked yelp before steadying himself. "Alpha, I'm here for the surrogate." I glanced at him. Of course, the treatment she needed. But the thought of someone else's hands on her bare skin, even for her wounds, made something primal stir inside me. No, the word came out half growl, equal parts me and my wolf. I couldn't bear the thought of sharing her in any way. The doctor recoiled, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "No," he stammered. I snatched the medical kit from his hands. "I'll take care of her. Leave." He hesitated, then bowed. "Of course, Alpha." He left quickly. Astrid's POV. Either I was hallucinating from blood loss or something strange was happening. Somehow, it felt like, for the first time, my wolf, silent and absent all my life, was speaking to me in that darkness. No, obviously I was dreaming. Surely that could explain why it felt like, against all logic, I saw Alpha Jackson coming to my rescue. Yet now, as I drifted back toward awareness, delicate touches followed by soft kisses danced along my back, unfamiliar but real. A faint shiver cut through the pain, prompting a soft whine from somewhere deep in my throat. Another kiss, this one at my neck, lingered a little too long. Reality pressed hard enough that my eyes fluttered open. The first thing I saw was Alpha Jackson, his hand, steady and warm, braced above me on the bed. What on earth was he doing? Fire raged across my back, every breath a reminder. He bent again, pressing his lips near my shoulder, and I realized this wasn't a dream. The sting of humiliation and fury burned through the fog. Did he really want me now? Was this it? Proof that I was just a surrogate, nothing more? Just another body to use, even like this? "Don't touch me," I whispered, barely a sound, but he froze above me, listening. "You're awake." Good. His voice was gruff, but somehow not cruel. For a fleeting moment, it even sounded relieved. He pressed his lips to my skin again, silencing any goodwill I might have felt. That wasn't worry for my well-being. No, that was just desire. That was all I was to him. I summoned what little strength I had, hardly enough to move but all I could muster, and pushed vainly against him. "Stop it. How could you even think about that when I'm like this?" Jackson's eyes snapped wide, startled. Still, I couldn't look away as my voice cracked under shame and fury, tears pricking my eyes. "Don't you care at all that you might hurt me?" I demanded. He crossed his arms, regarding me with a look I couldn't decipher. "I'm not hurting you, Astrid," he said, voice steady and grave. "I'm healing you." Chapter 25. Don't Leave. Astrid's POV. What was he even talking about? How could kisses on my back and his hands on my skin possibly be anything close to healing? Alpha Jackson let out a long, heavy sigh, noticing the suspicion on my face before he finally explained. Some alphas can speed up healing, especially from silver wounds, with their saliva. "I have that ability," he said. I stared at him, my jaw nearly unhinged in shock. Alpha Jackson looked a bit embarrassed, forcing me to settle my head back on the bed. "So just stay still, Astrid." "I wouldn't touch you, not even if you begged me for it right now," he muttered. I blushed, humiliated, and risked a sideways glance at him, feeling the heat rise all the way to my ears. "Do you really find me so revolting now?" I asked quietly, hoping my insecurity wasn't obvious. After everything between us, the shower, his unexpected rescue, I truly didn't know what to think. Was his cold distance simply because he thought I'd chosen Xavier over him? Did he see me as so spoiled by someone else? He reached under my chin and tilted my head to meet his eyes. "Astrid," he said, and something about the way my name came from his lips sent an impossible shiver through me. "When I take you, I want to break you and ruin you. What's the point if you're already hurt and broken?" To make his point clear, he jabbed his finger at a spot on my uninjured back that made me gasp, pain radiating outward. "Let me heal you, Astrid." This time, when he placed his lips to my back, I stayed perfectly still. Now that I was awake and aware, I realized he'd cleaned the injuries, maybe with disinfectant, to guard against infection. It burned and stung, but as his tongue moved over my wounds, something like relief flooded me. The pain faded with each gentle stroke. And gradually, agony transformed into something else entirely. My entire body felt like it was melting, every nerve crackling. Any attempt to remain quiet turned into a silent test of sheer will not to whimper. I felt Alpha Jackson stiffen above me. I knew he caught the scent of my longing. He stayed quiet, but his tongue slowed, deliberate and provocative each time it grazed my skin, turning this into some twisted contest of pleasure and restraint, a game I'd lost the moment he touched me. By the time he was finished, I was slick and straining for more. "Alpha Jackson." My voice sounded thick, all the need pooled there for him to hear. He replied, and his own voice was rougher, hoarser. "Astrid." In a single, effortless motion, he flipped me onto my back so we faced each other. For a fleeting instant, all I saw were those cursed gray eyes, drawing me in deeper. That's when reality snapped in. I was topless and his sheets did little to shield my embarrassment. Grabbing the bedding, I pulled it to my chest, but he just laughed. A low, handsome laugh that shouldn't have sounded so irresistible. "Nothing I haven't seen before, Astrid." God, even his laughter was unfair. I clung tighter to the bedding, trying and failing to keep the tremor from my words. "You said you wouldn't even touch me if I begged you." He tilted his head, scrutinizing me. "That was while you were injured. You're strong enough now." Heart in my throat, I watched Alpha Jackson crawl forward, straddling either side of me, closing the space between us. His mouth hovered over mine. I could almost taste him, but at the last second, I turned away, denying us both the kiss I desperately wanted. My mind screamed at me, asking, "What are you doing?" He caught my chin again, gently easing my face to meet his. "Are you angry with me?" he asked, nothing held back, not a single lie between us. I was taken aback. "Angry? At you?" His fingers trailed along my cheek, distracting and electrically gentle. "For not coming for you sooner. For not saving you from that pain." A bitter truth settled in my chest. I was angry for reasons that went beyond the pain, beyond his absence. I was jealous, I realized, furious at being made to share him, to fight over him. When Freya announced she was carrying his child, envy tore me to pieces. And now, when I'd finally cobbled together something I could dare call home, it all exploded in my face. So I lied. "I'm not angry with you." Jackson shook his head, eyes serious. He nodded slowly, forcing me to see him. The anger's written all over your eyes. Don't hide it from me. Desperately, I tried to change course. You see anger because I am angry. Angry because I was framed for something I know nothing about. His expression softened. He pressed a careful kiss to my forehead, as if in silent apology. I'll make sure the elders are sanctioned justly. But my frustration trembled inside me, beyond my control. How did we end up like this? Hours ago, this man was nothing but icy punishment. Now here he was, tending to my wounds as if I mattered. My own matching fury flashed hot in my eyes. I'm angry at how you can just shift, punishing and cold one moment, tender and caring the next, like none of it matters, like you get to choose. He looked stunned, vulnerable for maybe the first time. Astrid. But he didn't deny it. In that fragile instant, I felt my resolve solidify, forged of bruises and tears. I deserved better. Whatever this was, it wasn't enough. I couldn't live or die like this, fighting for a piece of affection, wearing scars from merely wanting hope. I want to leave, I said, finally voicing what had haunted me for so long. His eyes widened, shock washing over his face. Leave. Tears pressed sharp and hot at the back of my eyes, but I would not let them fall. You saw what they almost did to me there, Jackson. I could have died. I won't let my death mean nothing. Meaningless death. That was my greatest terror. A life ended before it truly started. His words made life with him bearable, but I couldn't settle. I didn't want my life to end here in the Crimson Moonpack. There was a whole world I was desperate to see. Then something happened I could never have expected. I'm sorry, he murmured. Did Alpha Jackson just apologize? But he wasn't finished. I was wrong, he admitted, shame twisting his features. I should never have treated you the way I did. Speechless, I only whispered Alpha Jackson. Taking me in his arms, he embraced me fiercely, desperate not to let go. I know he abducted you, he started, fighting for each word. I was wrong. I promise you, none of this will ever happen again. Don't ever talk of leaving. I have no intention of letting you go. And then, without warning, his lips claimed mine, burning, wild, and final. All my doubts slipped away as I let the bedding slide, surrendering my body to him completely. Alpha Jackson growled his approval, pulling me against him, his hands rough but assertive, sending sparks racing across my skin. A knock shattered our moment. He ignored it, his hand roaming lower. Another insistent knock broke his focus. Jackson snarled, "Who's there?" Caleb's voice rang through. Alpha Jackson, we found Jeff. A subtle transformation swept Jackson's face. He kissed me again, his lips gentler, almost like a goodbye. Rest. I'll be back very soon, he promised, whispering just for my ears. I nodded once, fighting to steady my breath. All right. In a second, he was out the door, and I heard it quietly close behind him. As soon as the room fell silent, I closed my eyes. Deep within, the only place I could trust myself, I pleaded. May, we have to find a way out. He'll never willingly let us go. We cannot die here. No matter what happened next, I couldn't let this place become my ending.